Hey, what's up?
Hello?
Jedi Steve.
Justin Brown.
Justin Brown.
Here we
So
are.
we want to talk about white privilege. Not brown privilege, white privilege.
White privilege.
So I don't think, I tell a lot of people I don't believe in white privilege. But I do think privilege exists, but there's a lot of different things of privilege that exists. There's beautiful woman privilege.
For sure.
Get to get
Beautiful
on the
man
front.
privilege.
Yeah. Get on. I mean, talk about good looking privilege. That's a thing. Like, talk about no. That is a thing.
Looking like Bob Marley privilege.
Yeah, that's a privilege. Yes, but a lot of it's not. There's some very poor people. Having your family, growing up in a household that your parents loved you. That doesn't have anything to do with rich or poor.
Nope.
That's privilege. A lot of these women that maybe are very attractive and a lot of things are going, they have to listen to just some ridiculous thing with a lot of creepy men saying to them all the time. Getting sent dick pics and just like a lot of different things. So the opposite of privilege, if we want to really define what privilege is, we want to know what the opposite of privilege is, and that's adversity.
Okay.
And I think more of what people are talking about is they're talking about entitlements. I think that's when it's an issue. When you have privilege and you have an entitlement to it.
About your privilege.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And what is the opposite of entitlement?
I mean, I'm sure you have a good word for it. The only thing I can come up with is not entitled.
Not entitled. Which you would be correct.
Yeah.
But a better word, I started with blessed.
Okay.
But I moved to charmed. And I want you to listen to this concept.
Okay.
Is I believe I'm charmed. I expect great things to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I expect that all of a sudden I'm going to be struggling with something. I'm going to meet the right person. That's just all of a sudden we're going to come together and we're going to solve a problem. I've had a situation with a client that was paying his attorneys $1,500 an hour, and this client was paying him all this money, and I was able. In addition to team building, I do lift. A person had landed in my lift that helped me solve a problem. And
Right.
because I didn't come across entitled, she listened to me, and I think these lawyers can go up to the counter because they no judgment on lawyers, but they would be kind of have the swag. They would have a bag on the swag, and they'd be in the suit and everything to do it. They probably wouldn't be coming in with as much humility.
Right.
So we got to know, if we want to know about privilege, we got to know about the tightness of being entitled and expecting things. So I expect great things to happen to me, and I don't get butthurt
When it doesn't.
when it doesn't come together.
Yeah. So you're not entitled.
Sometimes I am, so I can't necessarily say that I'm not entitled, because sometimes I am. I mean, it's like this stuff wouldn't exist. It's all about the duality of the different sides.
Yeah.
So if entitlement wouldn't exist without there being an opposite.
Right.
There's the opposite of being depressed. Depression
Sure.
wouldn't exist, and there wasn't an
Right.
opposite. And we're all on the spectrum for these different things.
Right. I always grew up with my dad. He was always saying there must be adversity in all things, and he always made it sound like that was something that he took out of our religion's book, the Book of Mormon, because I grew up Mormon.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's in there, but there is this idea in Mormonism, and probably in a lot of philosophies and a lot of religions too, where like adversity is necessary. Like summer's not enjoyable. There isn't a summer without a winter. There's not a winter without a summer. There's not night without day, right? And I think that's what you're hitting on, is that there isn't entitlement without adversity. And Conversely, there's not adversity.
Privilege without adversity.
Thank you. There's not
Actually, you go entitlement. Were you going with privilege or are you going with entitlement?
Well, I kind of see entitlement from what you're saying as fitting inside of privilege. That entitlement is like a thing that helps define privilege. That maybe privilege doesn't exist. I think what you're getting at, and I get that as soon as you start trying to define something, then it gets messy. But I get that like it seems like privilege, to have privilege, maybe a privilege that's unhealthy, or that's not beneficial, or that isn't helping other people, or that makes somebody come off like a dick because they've got all this privilege and they're unaware of it. I think that's because inside that privilege there's entitlement. And I think in both of those, in that whole big soup, like a big circle of entitlement right here, it doesn't exist without the other circle of adversity.
Yeah. A good example for that is my dad. My dad was a doctor, and my parents cut a check for $250,000 in the early '90s for me to go to college.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It doesn't. There's people that are far more privileged than that, but percentage-wise,
you're at the top.
There's not many people that are as privileged of that.
Nope.
Recently,
I didn't have that privilege.
Yeah.
My parents couldn't do that.
Lots of different people didn't do it. So I could, and probably I've done this during my time, and sometimes I get sucked into it. But I think even when I'm getting sucked into it, I know that there's like some bad energy around it. People will say, well, you could just like ask your mom for money.
Right.
It's this type of situation. Yeah. Like people like situation. I was stranded, and I had car problems. And I was able to borrow money from my family, like right. Easy. I was
because you could,
yeah,
because they could.
Yeah, situation. I don't know what I would have done in that situation, but a lot of people will get so attached to that situation and not appreciate it. So it's able to like appreciate with compassion and humility of what you're doing and what you have.
Sure.
And I gave a ride to somebody that was Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
And we were having a conversation just like you and I are having. And he was talking about how stuff's not going to change and everything and a lot of different stuff and talking about outside forces that are doing a lot of bad and doing a lot of harm. And then all of a sudden he says, my grandfather was a politician in Mexico, and when he was a politician he bought a lot of land for very, very cheap. And he goes, and this is 30-40 years later, he goes, we're still selling that land. Right. And making a lot of money. And I immediately was thinking, well, you were talking a good game on the other side, right. and this isn't my money. His money is not my money.
Right. No.
But I feel that if you're going to talk the big game that you could do, somebody like me or could tell you a way to shape that money and not necessarily give it to a nonprofit, but maybe create a foundation.
Sure. That
you help out a lot of people leveraging your privilege.
Yeah.
And it would be more beneficial to you from a heart-centered way, but it'd also be financially better if you shaped it properly.
Absolutely. I mean, it could be, right?
It could be. It
could be better for you.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying in a heart-centered way. Yeah.
Instead of just selling your land to increase a better lifestyle.
Right. It comes down to, that reminds me of the idea that I'm toying around a lot with, where what's enough? So just like a little backdrop, I might have talked about this before. My wife and I and our 4 kids, when we decided to go to law school, we knew that was going to be a really big burden on our time.
Congratulations on your kids getting into law school.
We're all in together. So it's not just me. So like, we really wanted to do this thing, but we knew it was going to be a huge burden on our relationship as a family because of the time constraints. And I actually had no fucking idea how hard that time constraint would be. It's crazy. It takes so much more of my time than I ever even expected. So we were like, well, let's go travel together and get a lot of time together while we're trying to decide where to go and trying to get in. So we sold our house, we bought a school bus, we renovated it into a motorhome, and we traveled the country for like a year and a half. And what we learned, or maybe what was affirmed for us that we thought we already understood and knew, was that we needed so much less than we ever imagined. Our bus was 260 square feet, and we were really happy in it. We were really, really, really happy in it. And it didn't matter if we made more money, because there were times when my wife and I would go do some work while we were out traveling, just to do some work, because it feels good to work and to have some more money. It didn't raise our standard of living. We were still living in a 260 square foot bus in a campground somewhere, or on the side of the road somewhere, or on a dirt road somewhere. The more money, we didn't go buy another car if we made more money. It just didn't raise our standard of living. And what we learned by that was like, we didn't need to raise our standard of living once we were okay. And I think that's what you're getting at, is like, I've been toying around with this idea that how do people, what is the signal? And I know it's different for everyone, but it seems like it would be really cool if people could recognize, including me, I'm not taking myself out of this, if I could recognize, okay, I have enough, I don't need to keep increasing my lifestyle in terms of spending or having more things or more shit. Instead, what if I took that extra money to create some kind of a system or some kind of a world where other people's lifestyle is getting lifted to that level where they don't need more, right? And it's I think
Like
that's
a cult. No, I'm joking.
It's super hard to get there though, because there's always something you need. Well, okay, we're here now and I'd really like to get some braces on my teeth. I'd like to straighten my teeth. Or I'm here now and I'd really like to get a new suit. And I gotta have a new suit because I'm gonna go into this meeting, or I'm gonna go to law school and I gotta look nice. Or we get to this level and it's like, we'd really like to take a trip. Or
A question I ask when I'm struggling with decisions a lot of time, it's sometimes easier for me to ask this question is, am I creating from lack or abundance?
Okay. Expound on that.
So I've had times when I'm struggling money-wise, more in the past than in the present, that I needed like $200 to pay, additional $200 to pay
Sure.
pay rent or whatever the
Power bill.
course is. And I would go to Starbucks in the morning, and I would have a $20 bill, and I'd buy my drink, and then I'd say the rest of this money is for the rest of the people online.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So I believe anything you want, which is a privilege, anything that you want, instead of being tight and holding on and wanting more, you give what you want.
So having an abundant mindset instead of a scarcity mindset.
Correct.
Yeah.
To do it. So, and abundance mindset instead of a scarcity mindset. I want to go into a story to really bring this home. I had two passengers in probably a 6-month period of time. And the first passenger was a guy that had one more semester in high school, and he was worth 14 million in Bitcoin.
Oh my gosh.
And this guy came from privilege.
Sure.
But how he was able to put this together is he played video games online, and on a lot of these video games you get tokens for being very successful, and they have these sites that will broker these tokens. Right. And he accidentally was dollar cost averaging in it, and he might have been privileged to know what dollar cost averaging is at a young age. He was dollar cost averaging that money into Bitcoin, but he thought he was doing it into dollars.
Oh.
And he all of a sudden he looked and he had a bunch of Bitcoin. So he became a day trader to do it. And mind you, he had already sold some of this money and bought real estate.
Okay.
So we're talking somebody from virtually nothing, for him, not his parents, virtually nothing, was able to put this stuff together and really take a look at it. Then I had another passenger that his father had died, adversity, and he got $100,000 life insurance policy, and he blew that money in 2 months.
Damn.
And the guy that was privileged, had money. I mean, his family was kind of successful and everything, and he just happened to luck into that, have the privilege of that. He was white. The other guy was African American.
Okay.
And so there.
And why is that significant?
It's significant if we're talking about white privilege. We're talking about certain strategies. It's a lot of it is luck. A lot of it is strategies, and the white people don't have a monopoly on that.
No, they don't.
So yes, there are certain things that the color of your skin, your gender, whether you're wealthy or poor, may affect your life, and that environment is important. But also, I challenge you, everybody in the audience, to be the most influential person in your life. Because that could have been a whole, and I wanted to film a documentary on this and really do it in a way that was more educational, because I mean, and the one guy went to Morocco, and he was like doing it on drugs, and
the dude that blew his money
on the situation. And he could have had an opportunity to, and we're talking a time frame that he invested $1,000 in Bitcoin. It could be worth $1 million. I mean, as far as like
but he didn't know about that.
He didn't
and
know.
That's the privilege the other guy had.
We made the assumption
that he didn't know
about.
I'm asking, did he know about that?
I don't know. I didn't even think to ask that.
Yeah.
Because that is an interesting thing that you said, because a lot of times, and this may have been caused by slavery.
Absolutely. It may have been.
It may have been caused. African Americans during my parents' lifetime, so not during my lifetime, in America, were killed for owning property.
Right.
So I'm going into a financial situation to buy a house. There might be more undue stress for me that I don't fucking know about.
There might be, through epigenetics in your DNA, something that prohibits you more than it might me, not having that in my DNA, to not buy land. Because buying land somewhere along the line in your DNA might have been a traumatic event. Whereas for my family, maybe, this is all hypothetical, of course, but maybe somewhere along the line in my family, land was bought and it wasn't a traumatic event. And we know that in my family's line, it was much less likely to have my land taken away because I wasn't black. And in your family line, there might have been somewhere along there the case where some land was stolen from your family because someone was enslaved or someone was lynched, and the court system just fucked them. Because they knew how. It's because someone took advantage of them. And we know, I don't know enough about epigenetics to know this for sure, but I do know that trauma, if I'm not mistaken, gets passed down to your children and to their children. And it activates genes in our bodies that otherwise wouldn't have been activated, and that changes who we are. So I think you're right. I think that the history of the way African Americans were treated and the history of the way Caucasian Americans were treated absolutely affects the privilege we now have. And that's hard to understand, I think. It was hard for me to wrap my head around to understand that you just said it. I have privilege that I don't even fucking know about. And I think it's probably true that you are missing some privilege that you don't even fucking know about. Is that fair?
Yeah, for sure. And you don't have to necessarily buy into what we're saying.
No,
we're not. Asking
I don't think I'm right.
And even though a lot of the stuff I'm saying about it, I have success people on both sides of my family, like I, as far as I know, there's never been. I mean, I guess everybody's got slavery in their lineage in some way.
Probably.
But I mean, the further back, I think the better off I mean,
Yeah, I mean, someone could
say.
say, well, dude, your family had some slavery in it back in the Roman times or some shit.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm
But
from
my
Rome,
family was in Barbados, and Barbados was a territory of England.
Okay.
And Barbados has its independence right now. Barbados was for over 40 years, I don't know if it still is, was the most literate island. The literate country in the world.
Really?
So a lot of times, I mean, my dad being a doctor, when I was 8 years old, privileged as fuck. When I was 8 years old, I went to, and I used to love to stare at the picture and everything like that, but I went to a convention like several times. But I remember when I was 8 years old, I went to a convention of black doctors and black dentists in the 70s. I went to that and stuff, and that stuff was normal to me.
Yeah, and not normal on a grander scheme.
Yeah, it's not normal.
America.
So I
not even for me. I didn't do that.
So I had a guilt that I didn't know about, and a lot of the changes in my life was when Obama was elected, because all of a sudden a lot of African Americans had a father, for lack of a better word, that I had growing up and I was around.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And that may not make sense to you, but that's the perception that I had, and I had a lot of guilt, and guilt is no fucking bueno.
No, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
No. You know, it's interesting because, like, I think about my dad. My dad grew up, he was born into a family that was super poor. So he was born in 1939, so right at the very end of the Depression, or at least the beginning of the end of the Depression. And his family lived under a tree out of their car. And they're a white family, right? They were dirt ass poor. He tells stories about he and his brother living in Salt Lake City and living in Price, Utah, which is back then was pretty, like, it was a mining town. It was a rough town, right? Not a lot of affluence, not a lot of wealth, mostly poor people. And they would go dive into dumpsters from construction projects and scrap out the linoleum, and then they would staple it or fasten it somehow to the bottom of their shoes, because their shoes had holes in them and their parents couldn't afford to buy them new shoes. But what's crazy about that is that adversity, they were experiencing the adversity, what you're talking about being the opposite of their privilege. What's crazy is that if I look at my dad's family, his mom took that adversity and still had some other privileges, namely that she was white is probably one, but she was a woman, not a privilege in the 50s, 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
She
still some challenges now.
Hell yeah. She left Price, Utah, went to Salt Lake, started a barber shop, made some money, bought a house, and several years later moved her whole family up to Salt Lake. My dad says that was the only stable home he lived in. And I think that was when he was like 13 that they finally moved him up there. Yeah. And he's like, before that, my family was not stable. So the adversity gave his mom something to go make that happen. In spite of not having, or maybe because of not having privilege, she had the adversity and it prompted her to act.
Chris Rock, this is one of the things that he said in one of his comedy things, and Chris Rock has been successful for a long period of time.
Sure.
As a comedian, as financially for a long period of time. He said that no white person would trade places with him.
Right.
Because he's talking about how much it sucks to be black, and he goes like, there's some one-legged blind busboy that was like, I'm gonna go with this white thing and everything like that, and he's talking about how he's rich and everything. I don't like when a lot of comedians use that situation. And on another
So he said no white person would change place with him, and I think what you're saying is that's not true. There are some white people who.
It's not true for me.
It's not.
It might be true for him. But I'm very concerned about what energy that I'm putting out into the universe.
Right.
Because people will take that with a grain of salt. or like the some of the racist stuff that might have been said towards Obama, and they'll give up because they're saying that there's put in that situation. But also maybe because of slavery, maybe because a lot of stuff that was happening, black people don't work together as well as we should.
Interesting. Maybe. I mean, I think of that Chris Rock example, and
people in general don't work together as well as they should, women included.
I think of that example of the Chris Rock thing, and going back to my dad's family, his mom had that adversity, and she had enough privilege, I think, and enough of something in her own DNA to take that adversity and make something gold from it, right? But then if you look at her kids in my dad's family, my dad had one brother and one sister and himself who became successful, quote unquote, financially stable, and there were 6 kids in that family. And the other kids in that family always struggled. They never fucking ever. I don't know them all that well, but from what I saw and from what I still see, they never got out. And it's not because when I say got out of poverty. And it's not because they were stupid. It's not because they didn't work hard. I don't even know what it is. I just know that my dad and one brother and his one sister somehow did. They had something in them, or maybe something lucky happened. I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of both. But I do know that the other 3 siblings didn't. And they lived and died poor. And I can guarantee you, I can think of one of my dad's brothers for sure would have traded places with Chris Rock any day.
Yeah.
And so that's the question, man. I love this conversation about privilege compared to adversity, because I can learn a lot from learning to be aware of what my privilege is so that I can accept that privilege gracefully and not take advantage of it, and maybe try to share that with other people. And on the flip side, I can look at my adversity and say, okay, what am I missing here? What do I need to do here? I don't have this privilege maybe. What can I do about it? Can I sit here and wallow in it? Sure, I could. Or maybe I can try to get better. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are going to be like, yeah, fuck that, dude. Good things happen to you. You're lucky. You don't have cops pulling you over for not signaling. And that's true. I don't. And that's look at the Sandra Bland situation in Texas, right? That lady got pulled over by a cop because she didn't turn her signal on, and she's dead. She's dead because of that.
Oh, yeah.
That shit doesn't happen to me.
Oh, yeah.
That's privilege. And that's an adversity that she had that was too great. It was too much adversity. So I'm getting passionate about it because I really do think it's hard, because I personally want to be a person who strives in my adversity to get better and doesn't let it get me down. But I recognize that even in my adversity, I have some privilege that helps me deal with that adversity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to go into, I believe that as far as manifesting things in life, creating things in life, adversity is more powerful than privilege.
Dude, I totally agree with you.
So, and around when I pushed past being, okay, everybody's got Obama, a lot of African Americans that were missing a father or missing the right father have
Sure.
Obama as something that they saw in their mind that, oh wow, more things are possible than I thought were possible. A lot of that, when that guilt went away, I started tapping into, because if you come from an intellectual family, they'll being lucky is frowned upon.
Yeah, my dad always said that luck is defined by skill, preparation, combined with opportunity.
Yeah.
He didn't believe he was lucky.
Yeah.
I look at him and I'm like, I can see some shit that went down. You were lucky.
And I'm like, no, I want to work hard. I want to work smart. I want to get lucky as fuck. I want to manifest in many ways to do it. But adversity is manure. Is bullshit. It sucks.
Yeah.
What is bullshit? Manure,
right.
You want to fucking create a fucking powerful orchard? You want something to be sustainable that you appreciate? Fucking adversity.
You need manure.
You need
That's such a good analogy. You're right. Like, Adversity is shit sometimes. But to your point, shit is what we use to grow an orchard. And from that grows privilege.
Yeah. And that concept, that reality, living by that and challenging you to be the most fucking influential person in your life and quit fucking going to motherfuckers in an ivory tower that don't give a fuck about you to ask for their approval.
No, you don't need
and ask them to do shit when you can do shit on a daily basis. And you, whoever your fucking people, that this is my fucking people right here. And it doesn't matter about fucking race. It matters about the fucking character that he has. You can fucking come together and fucking create fucking magic.
Absolutely, dude. Did my grandma, who I never knew, she died before I was born, did my dad's mom go ask a man if it was okay for her to move away from her family, which was a huge faux pas, right? Or taboo in the 50s. Did she have to ask anyone if it was okay for her to abandon her family, basically, and move to Salt Lake and start a fucking business and buy her own house and then move her kids and her husband up? Her husband, who couldn't make money, by the way, like, because he just wasn't a business guy. He wasn't good at that. She was. She didn't fucking go ask a man for their approval.
And she was lucky to a certain extent that even though it was hard and it was hard to do it, in the past it was fucking even harder for a woman. So there was a luck benefit. A lot of times I come across students and people that might be unemployed, and I tell them is like, people are saying it's hard to get a job right now, and I'm just like saying, what you're trying to do is you're on a line with a lot of people that are saying the economy has to shift for me to get a job. You just need one job.
And it snowballs.
You just need one freaking job. You don't need the economy to shift. You don't need everybody in the news to say, oh, the economy's okay, so you have permission to go get a job.
You don't need that. You're right. You don't. I didn't need that. I mean, I struggled with that for a long time about when I could go to law school. And it was like, I would say that there was always this thing because I wanted to go since I was like 26, 25. And I never went. And then, I didn't decide to go till I was 39 or I was 40. And all that time in between there, I was always waiting. I didn't think about it till right now. I was always waiting for someone's approval. To be like, yeah, now you can go. Now's a good time to go do that. That's bullshit. That time never came. The only thing that came was I was like, I want to do this. And if it means I'm going to have to sacrifice, I'm going to do it. And now listen, I understand that scenario, I had some luck. I had some privilege. Lots of privilege. Privilege that I'm not even unaware of. But I took the adversity I was facing and I said, what do I want to do? And I just started working for it.
So this mindset that he has and that he's modeling right now is very important for going on in life. It helps you understand other people. And listening is so important to other people. There's some things that if he all of a sudden just went into it and said, oh, we all go through stuff and get a shit sandwich to somebody that might see themselves as him in a place of white privilege.
Sure.
They might be in a place that this could be offsetting.
Right.
The important thing is this is something that you can share this video with somebody. And I want to see in the comments, I mean, what adversity have you been through? What miracles have you created?
What a beautiful exercise. I need to do that because sometimes I let my adversity get me down. And I get that some adversity is so rough that it isn't going to do anything but get you down. Having said that, what a beautiful exercise to think back on the times when I've had adversity and ask myself, what did I make of that? Because I think, not for everyone and not always, but I think there probably are some and maybe many instances where I can see that the adversity was the proverbial shit in the orchard.
Beautiful. How are we going to wrap this up?
I've been saying FSU a lot lately to all the students that I go to school with, even though we're not at Florida State, because it means fuck shit up. And I just think, fuck shit up. Like, take your situation. I'm going to try. I know it's hard. I know for some of you it's not possible, but fuck shit up. Take what you've got and fucking make the most of it.
Fuck shit up!
FSU.
FSU. FSU. I have trouble with acronyms sometimes. So.
You smoke too much weed, maybe.
Yeah, possibly. and one of the things with adversity, I'm dyslexic. And,
really? I didn't know that.
And I would say, and I acknowledge the fact of even being in a household that I could have been identified as I was born in '69, but even being identified as early on about being dyslexic, that was a privilege.
Hell yeah. Dude, my wife's dad is dyslexic, and I don't think he knew that till he was a young man. I don't think he knew.
Yeah.
So you're right. That is a privilege, like, because a lot of people didn't, especially in the 70s, right?
I was going to classes in Coronado, which is an island, a little. It's actually a peninsula, but it's a little island off it that I was jumping on trampolines. What I would know it as now is it was shifting my association with learning. I was very good at math, but going back to that thing of having a lot of time to do this, I wrote 16 books in 5 years.
Wow. And
a lot of people will criticize me. I speak perfect grammar, but as far as like my writing, I don't do it because I think grammar has a lot of limitations in it, and it shifts the way that you're doing. And I remember when I was typing at some point, I couldn't spell certain words, so I'd change it in words, and that kind of changes the environment. So you having to worry about making comments and everything like that, or the stress of Mrs. Quagmire, which is a name I made up, Mrs. Quagmire, your teacher, yelling at you. I know a lot of Catholics that Catholic students when they're in school that they got fucking beat.
Yeah.
I mean, why?
It's definitely an adversity.
Kids, they got fucking beat for
for being at
during
school.
my lifetime. They whipped or they did lots of fucked up shit just for people being left-handed.
I know, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy to think like right-handedness is a privilege. Yeah. And it is.
Yeah. And growing up in a extremely privileged household, there's certain shit that I mean you'll see your Paris Hiltons, you'll see a lot of that, but you'll see like a lot of people that just can't do certain things that are really fucking cool because of their privilege.
Right. Oh, the privilege is holding them back.
Yeah, because they're family. Because there's a certain standard for that. I mean, it was a big thing in my family for me to grow dreads. It was a fucking way too fucking big, and we're talking at 38. It was a really big thing for.
Yeah, I get it. Because that was a faux pas in your family.
Yeah. And
it's not appropriate.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, your dad's a doctor. I mean, that's fine for other people in the situation. So, going back to this. How are you leveraging? Don't just watch this video. Don't just like have. I mean, talking points. Talking points will shift. It starts with It starts with your thinking. It starts with the concepts.
Sure.
But think about how you're leveraging privilege and what you've manifested from privilege and adversity. Learn to listen more to what people are going through, and not necessarily create a bunch of talking points and think about what to say. And like a lot of times, I don't want to listen to people. Because they're just saying like the stuff that I could just like watch the news and see.
Sure.
Because we're all so much more powerful, and there's fucking like how are diamonds created? Diamonds are created by a tense amount of fucking pressure.
That's right.
From coal to something that's like really extremely valuable.
Yeah.
So your adversity is a fucking diamond.
Dude, think of the Rumi, the Muslim poet. He has that. Checkmate, I think is what the poem is called, where he talks about how a porcupine is enlarged when you hit it with a stick. That adversity makes him get bigger, right? And he talks about tanning leather, how the acid being poured on the skin, the leather, is what makes it tough.
So would that be considered a fetish for the porcupine?
He's like, yeah, kick my ass, I'll get bigger. Maybe.
Well, we're going to end with that because it's all downhill from here.
Okay.
Peace
out.